Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi, the Division 2. Look at us with the Division 2 video. Excuse me, gosh. So, one of the commenters wanted me to try a couple of subjects. So that's what the focus. This is probably the best run I can remember in DUA in quite a while. It was really fast. We took a lot of pauses, but the actual action was, this is a super powerful group. The group leader has a ninja backpack, and he has one green piece, but it gives him an extra critical hit. The other guy's a striker, and the third guy didn't look at his stuff. I just knew that it was heavy weapon DPS. So it's kind of like the perfect group for what I'm doing. So how do you take criticism? I take it poorly. Everyone takes it poorly. There are a couple things I don't take it poorly on, and one of them are these videos. So when I started doing this, people have been broadcasting on YouTube for a long time, and I was just starting, so I obviously wasn't going to be very good at it. So my expectations of myself were lower. My ego was not as involved in it. So when people gave me feedback or criticism, it was easier for me to accept it. There's other things in my life that I think that I know, and when I get criticism on it, I tend to not take it as well, or I get defensive. And really, all of this goes back to your ego and how much you're invested into things. I want you to think about when you're a child and you're learning things, you might get nervous if the teacher asks you a question you don't know the answer, but you're in the learning process, you're not really susceptible to feeling bad about criticism because you have no expectations that you know what you're doing. It's only as you get further along in the training and you think you know something and then you don't, that's when you might get a little red-faced or embarrassed. Hopefully you can see where I'm driving on this. Is all criticism valid? No. So now we're getting into a dangerous area because you are starting to, or I'm going to present a scenario where you're starting to analyze the criticism instead of just receiving it. Is the criticism coming from a place of malice? Is it coming from a place of love, of care? Guess what? It doesn't matter, YouTube. It doesn't matter if it's lovingly or it's meant to cause you harm. When you receive that criticism and it's something touching your ego, it's going to be bad no matter what. There's nothing that's going to make it good. It's not good if you're someone that loves you. If it doesn't make it any better. What makes criticism easier to take is a lack of ego involved in what you're doing. And in almost everything, I think I mentioned before, there was a woman, Anna Maravellis, came to give us conflict resolution at a couple places I worked at. And they talked about why people get road rage. And a lot of times, this is because people have a perception in their head. Normally, YouTube, this is when I would ask you to like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, share, comment, hit the notifications. If everyone could help me get to 500, I'd appreciate it. I've said before, I want to probably open up the channel. I'll be on the screen more. Not that that's some treat for all of you. It's probably, you might say, we'll get you to 1,000 if you take your face off the screen. That may happen. But you imagine, getting back to road rage, you have a way, or think about when people get angry. In your mind, there's a way things are supposed to be. And the present situation isn't happening according to what you think it's supposed to be. You may be justified. Get out of the left lane. If you're driving slow, get out of the left lane. Everyone in the world might be justified, and that's how people should drive. But this is where it stems from. Someone is violating something that you rightly, wrongly think is, this is how the world is. Again, you're inserting your ego into that situation. And so the number one thing is to not put your ego in to what you're doing. So when you get criticism, you don't get mad. I'll give you an example. Mrs. Ronan Kazi sometimes tells me to wash my hands when I get in from work. And I don't know why. She's trying to be helpful. And I don't know why, but like sometimes I won't do that. So that's my ego getting in the way. Would it hurt me to wash my hands? No, it wouldn't hurt me to wash my hands. And that's a real lightweight example. If you're doing something that you think you're good at, and people criticize you, it can hurt your feelings. I'll give you another example from my life. Of course, I would watch cooking shows, and you would see things that people would make. And risotto was one of those things that I said, oh, we could make risotto. So I tried to make it one night, and it just had too much salt. And Mrs. Ronan Kazi let me know it had too much salt. I knew it had too much salt. But because I wasn't an expert in the field and I didn't have any ego tied to it, it didn't bother me. I'm probably less accommodating when people would talk to me about like my build. I think the build I'm running here is pretty great. And in a group like this, it's even great. The nice thing about the division is there's a synergy between different builds, and we just happen to have it. This video is not long. I did not speed it up at all. It's like 16 minutes to go through there. Now, I cut between the sections where we were waiting, so it took like maybe 28 minutes with all the waiting we did. So we had like 12 minutes of waiting or running or just whatever. So the big takeaway is, if you want to try to receive criticism, try not to have your ego involved. And in general, in almost everything, if you try to not have your ego in the forefront, we've talked about that before, being empathetic, seeing things from the other person's point of view, that can go a long way. Now, let's say the criticism is not warranted, it's not accurate, and it's not helpful. So it's easy to dismiss that. I'm going to give you an example. The video you're watching, what if someone says, I don't like that you magnified it 5%. And I don't like that you delogged and then you changed the brightness to 80% when you delogged it. And I noticed that you sharpened it to 1.5% or 1.5 times instead of 1 times. YouTube, as you know at this point, and I appreciate everyone that's watching the channel and subscribing and everything, the videos are a backdrop for me to talk to you and share things about what's going on. It's a framework that you can discuss. If this run would have been bad, there would have been a lot of criticism on this. The other one was like a detailed analysis of something. And I was going to do that, but this was so flawless. This is exactly how you should play it. I mean, if I did a walkthrough, this is exactly, I would want you to imagine how this was played. It was pretty flawless of a run. I think a guy died once. You saw at one point I almost died, but I could see the grenadier. I had identified the grenadier. I saw him. I heard the report of his weapon go off, and I just immediately tried to get out of the way. So we're getting back to the criticism of some aesthetic things, and someone may not like it. That's okay. That's nothing that hurts my feelings. And they can say, I don't like any of those things you did to the video. And it's not a hill I need to die on. You may not like the opaque watermark Ronin Kazi I've spent hours making. You may say it's trash. And that's okay. Because these aren't some things. You may say, I don't like how you raised your kids. I don't believe what they think. I don't like what you stand for. I don't like that you talk in your videos. I don't like the message you're saying. I don't like that you say you should be empathetic. I don't like that you should receive constructive criticism. And those get closer to kind of maybe the core of what I'm doing. So what should I do in those criticisms? You might have a pat answer that is like, well, everyone's entitled to your opinion, and you might do it off like that. But those kind of criticisms aren't really criticisms, right? They're more on the attack side, because it's like if I could see in your head, which I can't, and I could understand what you're thinking, which I can't, and I could understand where you're coming from emotionally, and I can't. And if I understood all the training or all the experience you had before you got to this place, but I can't do all of that, then some of that criticism might be valid. So who's the only person that could give me that type of criticism? That knows what your state of mind was 5 minutes before, an hour before, what you were doing yesterday, what you're going to be doing if you have that planned, what your background is, how your parents were, how your friends were, how your schooling was. Who knows all that stuff? And I'd submit to you, you probably don't know it as well as you think you do. So the most biting criticism is the self-criticism. It's a tool for sure. But just like diseases that attack your own body, your body is responding to things, and it goes, oh, I need to fix this in my own body. Autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune criticism, where you're constantly beating yourself up. Those aren't good for you either. A little bit of criticism is good. A little bit of looking at yourself through other people's eyes is good. But to bask in that, and for day after day to ride yourself and critique yourself and put yourself down, it doesn't do anything. You know, there's famous saying, everything in moderation. But that's what I'd say, especially with criticism. It's a powerful tool, but it also cuts really deep. So, we talked about, maybe if you get your ego out of the way. Once someone gives you the criticism, and you can remove yourself from the immediacy of it, you might use the problem-solving techniques we've talked about. Asking yourself why. Why did that person say that? Why did that person point that thing out to me? I have a Discord channel, and I was sharing one with one of the commenters. He was kind enough to start it, and we would just talk on his channel. I didn't really have a Discord channel, because I felt that the channel wasn't big enough. If 10% of the people are going to comment, and maybe 10% of that 10% are going to really talk to you daily. So if I had 100,000 people, 10% of that would be, math, you too, 10,000. Let's say another 10% of that might be 1,000. Those might be the number of people that watch my videos every day. And in general, that's of the people that are subscribers. In general, when you look at your videos, when I look at other big channel videos that have nothing to do with me, when I look at their channels, they have like 10% views of how many subs they have. In general, on their, podcasts, people that have videos every day like I have. And I'm right around there. Sometimes I go over. The last video I went over. Whenever I do division videos, those get more play. Some of the Diablo stuff's starting to get some play, and I really appreciate that. It's over that 10%. So that's good. But I do have a core group of people that's probably less than 10 people that are watching it every day. Maybe it's a little bit better. So I appreciate you guys. I think it's a little bit better. I probably have 50 people that watch it, probably for sure 20. I don't know how many people watch for sure, but YouTube, that's a little bit on criticism. I was going to tell you that story. I'll have to save it for another time. This is Ronan Kazi. We went through this like nothing. Appreciate you all, YouTube. Talk to you soon. Bye.